Good evening and welcome to the Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, October 24th. Nice to have you all here, and we will recognize the Troop 444 in just a moment. But right now, Dee, would you please call roll?
Mayor John?
Present.
Councilmember Benjamin?
Present.
Councilmember Dubin?
Here.
Councilmember Guido?
Here.
Councilmember McCall?
Here.
Councilmember Parks?
Here.
Councilmember Weller?
Present.
Councilmember Wright?
Here.
Under announcements tonight, Project Downtown Pullman went to bid last Wednesday. Sealed bids are to be received by the city up 10 a.m. on Thursday, November 30th, at which point bid openings will immediately take place in the council chambers. Other announcements tonight, about 130 students from Pullman Christian School, as well as their parents and staff, volunteered on October 13th at Pullman City Parks, raking, removing plant debris, as well as cleaning up graffiti and garbage around that area. We certainly thank you very much, Pullman Christian School, for all that work. I did write them a thank you note, stopped by and said thank you. It was really nice to have them do this. Boy Scout Troop 444 is here tonight. Their communications merit badge. They need to attend a public meeting. So this is a good public meeting for all of you. Welcome. I did mention you didn't have to sit the whole meeting because I've seen what the communications merit badge is. So if you have other things that you have to, like homework, you could do that. But you can sit here for at least a half hour or something like that. So anyway, it's great to have you here. The 20th Annual Palouse Basin Water Summit, Thirst, Transforming Our Relationship with Water, is coming up this Thursday, October 26th, 4:30 to 8 p.m. at the SEL Event Center. Applications are being considered for a couple of groups right now here on the city. You can take a look at our website, dealing with the Arts Commission, Cemetery Committee, and Environmental Resilience Commission. City's annual leaf collection service will be November 6th through the 22nd. You can just visit our city website, find out which hill and what day it's going to be in your neighborhood. And that's all a great thing. You just rake your leaves out. Don't bag them. You just put them out in the street, and they come by and do a great job picking them up. Come to Neal Public Library to meet the author of Spinning Teacups, Alexandra Teague, this Thursday at 6:30 p.m., the author of What Comes After, Joanne Tompkins, on Tuesday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Now that the new parking lot has been installed, and I drove out there today to double check everything, and it really looks beautiful, and the new equipment at Mary's Park, we're really grateful for that. I always like to point this out, that the Kiwanis Club came up with like $35,000 to help us with that park and did a great job with that. We really appreciate it. And so they've got the new all the different playground equipment there, but the best part is the parking lot is paved and it's striped. The longest time, they're still working on some other things out there as well. McGee Park also reopened to the public, and I drove by that one and looked at that. It looks really nice out there. All ages are invited to the Spooky Splash on Saturday, October 28th from 3 to 6 o'clock at the Pullman Aquatic and Fitness Center. Little ones ages 3 to 10 and their own grown-ups can also drop by the Halloween Carnival on Tuesday, October 31st, 4 to 7 o'clock at the Rec Center, Building B right here. Registration is encouraged. I think I saw several people in costume just yesterday going by. Sign up for the suicide prevention training at the Rec Center, November 14th at 6:30 p.m. The training is called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer. We've talked about that a couple of times. We had Andy Pillars here talking about it. I know, Nathan, you've been through that training program as well, and you highly recommend it. So, again, November 14th, so put that down on your calendar. Some of you probably have already noticed this. Some of you are dressing appropriately for it, but just in case you haven't noticed, it's going to get down to the 20s starting Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, get down to about 21 on Friday. So if you can protect your outside watering, you might drain your pipes or whatever that's outside and make sure it's protected for that so you don't have any broken water pipes. And it's always good to always mention the fact that when Thanksgiving break comes up and Christmas break, we always want to remind people if you're going to go away, make sure your heater is on. You set your temperature low, but we always have broken water pipes, and the fire department has to respond to that. So always keep your heater on when you're gone. You can lower, like 50 degrees. It's not going to break the pipes there. But when you turn everything off, things freeze and we have broken water pipes. Today, this month, October, is Alternatives to Violence Month. And we have a couple of people from Alternatives to Violence here today. And Sandy and Stephanie, if you want to come to the podium, I'll read the proclamation that we have, and then Stephanie, you can talk a little bit about Alternatives to Violence. We're so grateful for all the work the volunteers do here in this area. So the proclamation for Domestic Violence Action Month is whereas domestic violence violates an individual's dignity, security, and humanity, and crime, its sweeping effects in our community, safety, and health. Whereas survivors should have help to find compassion and healing that they deserve, and perpetrators of violence should be held accountable for their actions. And whereas all residents of Pullman should feel safe and at peace in their homes. Whereas our youth deserve information, education on healthy relationships, boundaries, and consent. And whereas Alternatives to Violence of the Palouse is committed to end violence in our community through prevention education and is providing services for those affected by violence for over 40 years. So I declare the month of October as Domestic Violence Action Month. So Stephanie, as the lead advocate, you might just say some of the things that are going on, how you're doing with volunteers, and again, we're so grateful for Alternatives to Violence of the Palouse in this area. So,
Thank you. Do I have to lean to the microphone? I know.
yeah, you just get close. You're
Okay.
good.
All right. Thank you for having me, us, ATV here. I'm really, this is my first time doing this, so bear with me. But we've been, as an agency, serving survivors of domestic violence and, in fact, all types of violence in the community for over 40 years now. And so this month for Domestic Violence Action Month, this is a time where we focus on survivors of domestic violence specifically and stand in solidarity with them as they navigate some pretty difficult times for them. Currently, we're doing quite a bit of education and prevention work. We're doing a lot of community events. We've signed up for a lot of Halloween weekend events and things like that, trying to get the word out. Because increasing our presence in the community, including the rural areas of Whitman County and Latah County, because we both we feel like that's vital to making the community a healthier, happier place to be. And we really appreciate you, the City of Pullman, the council members, and the mayor recognizing that Domestic Violence Action Month is important to the community of Pullman. We're going to continue to stand for survivors of all types of violence the whole year through. So if you have anybody who wants to volunteer for us, we are taking community volunteers. We have volunteers that man the hotline on a regular basis. We do those on a regular basis. So, and if you know anyone that needs our support, please, please, please have them call our hotline. It's 24/7 hotline. Thank you so much.
Do you want to give the hotline number?
Yes, it is. So for on the Washington side, it is 509-332-4357. HELP, just spell out the word HELP. And for on the Idaho side, it is 208-883, also HELP, that 4357.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Sandy, thank you for your work as well. And you're going to say something too, I bet.
Yes, not a problem. Of course, I am just going to emphasize that we are now taking community volunteers. That is in addition to our crisis line volunteers. So if you want to do a donation request, like how you see the tables in front, to receive products for our shelter, we can do that now. And there's many, many other ways to volunteer. Just call that hotline at 324-4357 for the same amount of help.
Thank you, Sandy. And Ann, you've been tied up with Alternatives for Violence, working with them for a number of years. So.
Yes, I've been with them for several years, thank you. And I just want to say, these two women here are just an example of our really, really fine advocates, young women right now, all of them are women who help people in their greatest hour of need, and they're 24/7, and they do amazing work, and they help run our shelter, and they make sure that people have what they need as far as food, shelter, clothing, care for their children, things like that. So we're kind of a quiet agency, but we do a lot of work, and I'm so proud of all of our advocates, really, who are out there every day on the ground just doing the work. So any help be appreciated, and I'm just really proud of this agency and the work that they do. We do.
And thank you, Ann, for your work.
Thank you.
Right, from there, we now move on to presentations tonight. So item number C on the agenda tonight is the tax increment financing. The council requested some information on this, and we have our Economic Development Manager, Sean Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Thank you, City Council, for giving me the opportunity to come up here and speak with you about tax increment financing tonight. Just a couple things about the presentation. There is a lot of very detailed and intricate workings around TIF, and so there's portions of this where I will be reading off the screen, so please forgive me for that. If you have any questions during the presentation, since I am reading a little bit of a script, please feel free to stop me at that moment. It'll be easy to pick right up where we left off, and if you've got questions that you want to save to the end, that's just fine too. So again, for those of you who haven't met me, I'm Sean Miller, the Economic Development Manager for the city here in Pullman, and been on the job for about 3 months now, and so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity again. We'll go ahead and hop right into it. So I'm here to speak to you about tax increment financing, or as you've heard me call it already, TIF. The presentation is meant to give you a 30,000-foot view of tax increment financing and seek your recommendation on the pursuit of this project funding tool. I intend to tell you what TIF is, how we would obtain it, and some of the pros and cons. All right, so what exactly is tax increment financing? TIF is a public financing tool that enables local governments to invest in the development and revitalization of specific areas within our communities. This is a mechanism that captures the incremental increase in property tax revenues generated by new development or improvements within a designated TIF district. The primary purpose of TIF is to stimulate economic growth, attract private investment, and promote community redevelopment. By utilizing TIF, local governments can finance public infrastructure projects such as roads, utilities, and parks. These can be crucial for attracting private developers and spurring economic activity. When the TIF district is established, the local government utilizes current tax assessed value to set a base assessed property value for the district. As development occurs within the district, the property values increase, and consequently, property tax revenues rise. All property tax gathered below the initial base assessed value will continue to the tax districts. The incremental increase in property taxes, known as the tax increment, is then set aside and reinvested in the TIF district as a specified period for a specified period of time, ranging in the state of Washington between 5 and 25 years. TIF districts must be carefully planned in designated areas within a community. These are boundaries that are defined by local government and typically encompass areas that need redevelopment or have the potential for significant economic growth. TIF can be a powerful tool for revitalization in blighted areas or underdeveloped areas, creating jobs and improving the overall quality of life within a community. However, it's important to carefully evaluate the potential impacts, such as the displacement of existing residents or businesses and the long-term fiscal implications. For instance, if the event revenue is not substantially increased by development in the TIF district, the city must pull those funds from elsewhere to repay debts. It's also important to note that both the City of Pullman as well as the Port of Whitman have the ability to apply a TIF within the city limits of Pullman. The city has the option to fund the project from general obligation bonds, or if they so choose, on a pay-as-you-go basis. Revenue in the TIF fund will be used to pay bond redemption or these project invoices. However, the city is not restricted to a singular payment method. It's also important to understand that once the projects are complete and settled, the TIF will sunset. The city is then required to return all money in the TIF fund as appropriate. That being said, if a TIF is scheduled for a 10-year basis and it finishes payoff in 5, that TIF would sunset at that moment rather than fulfilling that full 10-year obligation. I want to preface this slide by saying that these outlines are not intended TIF districts. Rather, they have been added purely as a visual. This is for example and is not a recommendation or a subtle hint. In order to designate a TIF district or increment area, we must navigate the listed restrictions. So here's a quick overview. The city would be required to adopt an ordinance authorizing creation of the increment area. Before that can occur, we would need to inform the public of this direction. I'll cover the general briefing requirements and the project analysis that would be presented during this general briefing on following slides. The City of Pullman will have the option to create up to 2 TIF districts. These districts could not combine to be greater than 200 million or 20% of Pullman's total assessed value. It's important to note that these 2 districts would not have to be contiguous. It's my understanding that previous conversations on TIF may have understood otherwise. That being said, this would be just fine. There are certain qualifying factors for a TIF district. The local government must make a finding that the process public improvements are expected to encourage private development and increase assessed valuations within the increment area. The private development would not be reasonably expected to occur solely through private investment without the reasonably foreseeable future, without the proposed public improvements. The expected assessed value within the increment area without the proposed public improvements would be less than the expected assessed value and with public improvements, and the anticipated private development within the increment area is allowed under the permitting jurisdiction's zoning and development standards. Again, I'll reiterate, the image on this slide is purely visual and in no way a recommendation of a future TIF district. I'd like to also extend my thanks to the newly appointed city administrator for the city of Wenatchee, Laura Gloria. Laura graciously gave me some of her time to talk about TIF and how Wenatchee is utilizing the tool. It's one thing to read through the RCW, but it is quite another to have a face-to-face conversation with someone who has boots on the ground. My sincere thanks goes out to Laura, and I wish her and the city of Wenatchee all the best moving forward with their TIF project. I thought it was important to outline a project that was happening in Washington State. With TIF being so new in Washington State, really only starting in 2021, there's only, I believe, 11 different cities that are utilizing this. I think that's 8 cities and 3 ports that are taking advantage of TIF right now. And so I wanted to give you an up-close and personal idea of what these projects can look like. And like I said, Laura gave me a great opportunity to learn a little bit about this. The North Wenatchee TIF district boundaries encompass the city's 8-acre property that's currently for sale, and the private properties east of North Wenatchee Avenue from Maple Street to Holly Street. The McKittrick Signature Street project will insert a new traffic light intersection and extend the road to connect with Columbia Street via an underpass. The Confluence Parkway project is a 2.5-mile bypass that proposes a new bridge over the Wenatchee River to provide the city with new connection to highways. The North Wenatchee Boulevard Gateway will develop North Wenatchee into a boulevard with landscape medians and street lights. I want to point out that this is a $130 million project. $113 million of that is being covered by grants. And when you do a TIF, you do an anticipated amount that you will gain from that TIF from economic development in the future. They chose 25 years here, and you can see it's a $4.4 million anticipated gain. That leaves them $12.6 million to take care of, and they are searching for grants to kind of fulfill those requirements. There are quite a few project analysis requirements listed here. Recently, local fire services have been a point of contention. However, this would not affect Pullman, as RCW 39.114.020 makes requirements for fire protection districts and regional fire protection service authority, none of which are applicable for Pullman. I also want to add that buildings within the TIF district would now need to be assessed each year to identify the tax increment. Following these requirements, we will submit a detailed report to the State Treasurer's Office, and they'll respond with a project analysis overview outlining any concerns they may have. These responses are posted publicly on the State Treasurer's website, and I'd be happy to send that link to Council to review if you so desire. Ultimately, the decision will be up to Council on moving forward following the reply from the State Treasurer's Office. That being said, I am open to any questions that you may have regarding tax increment financing.
And again, tonight was just a presentation of this. And Becky?
Thanks, Sean. Could we go back to your second slide? I just want to make sure I understand how TIF works.
Absolutely.
So can I tell you what I understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Or what I think I understand?
Absolutely.
Is that the city is, as the the value of the property increases, taxes necessarily increase along with that. And the city then takes that increase in those taxes because of the property value and sets that aside for development or something like that. Am I getting close?
Yes, absolutely, Councilmember Dubin. So to try to explain it a little bit better, if we decided to move forward with TIF, what we would do is we would do a tax assessed value for every building within the TIF district.
Okay.
And that's going to set our base assessed value, as you see in the black horizontal line here. What happens from that point is at June 1st the next year, when TIF is implemented, anytime we put money into that, into the economic development, and we see those property taxes rise, that increase in property tax from the base assessed value will be set aside into a TIF fund, which will be used to either fund the project on a pay-as-you-go basis or pay off any general obligation bonds that we may use to fund the project initially.
That's very helpful, thank you. Can you go to your next slide?
Absolutely.
And that's what you mean here by the general obligation bonds, is what you just described, or the pay-as-you-go, as we're getting those increase in property taxes we pay off.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, that's very helpful.
Absolutely, thank you.
Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad Councilmember Dubin helped me understand a little bit more about it. I just wanted to make sure this is not us saying, hey, we're going to raise your property. Is that property tax, is that correct? It's just putting that property increase in property taxes, as Councilmember Dubin said, correct?
Correct. As we see the TIF, as we see those increments rise, that's the portion that will be set aside for future portions. And as actually, there's a portion in the story for the Wenatchee TIF project where the mayor does come out and say that they're excited to promote this TIF district because it's not going to raise the taxes for the city.
Okay, I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, because I know one of the challenges we have currently, especially with the downtown core area, is that we have several property owners who feel that rent should be at a certain level, which is much higher than what I or many other people feel it should be, which has kept many entrepreneurs out of our downtown area, from what I understand. I think, if nothing else, this will help to give us an idea of those buildings, and so we have more data. So, yeah, I think this is a great idea. Is there any downside? I'm trying to understand. This seems rosy. Is there any downside?
Yeah, Councilmember Weller, I'd love to touch on that. And I think that's a very important point to highlight the cons, because they are a little bit skimmed over here in my presentation. A big portion of those cons are, if we outline a TIF district and we start more development in that district, do we see something like people trying to start raising rents because we have a boon in a specific area? And from that, are we assessing a gentrification upon a certain district? And are we going to see those rents rise? Are we going to see lower median income housing really diminish in that area? And then same with business rent. It could be something that we really need to look out for. I think the other option that you really need to look at for potential con is the fact that if we're not able to generate the funds from that economic increase, the city is still going to be on the hook, obviously, to pay for that money. And so we are potentially putting a future fiscal burden on the city of Pullman, and that would be the risk that would be associated with TIF. We need to be very careful about what project we associate this with, and that would be a big thing that I think we should look out for in the future if this is something we decide to go with.
Francis?
Thank you. I have a couple different, just understanding the nuances with it. One, as Councilmember Dubin talked about, is this, you're setting aside future increases in property tax based on valuation increase. How do you differentiate between value increase this the normal valuation over time that's going to happen to everybody, and then valuation because of the project? That's my first question.
That's a great question, Councilmember Benjamin. That's actually something that was brought up recently in the House Finance Committee hearing when they spoke about tax increment finance, because there is not a way that we can associate common inflation with that rise. And so there is certainly potential that as we see building values rise due to inflation, all that inflation will be wrapped up. There's nothing that will distinguish it from that base assessed value, so it would go to the TIF fund.
Okay. And then as a follow-up, the money that is collected from the TIF fund, is that something that we'd be able to use as a local match for a grant?
Not that I understand, but I can try to find the better information for you. From what I've done in my research, I don't see that as something that's applicable, but I want to get you the right answer, so I'll do a little bit more
Just saying,
research.
if we're working for grant, whether that local match. And then the last piece is, can you talk some, you referenced as it related to fire taxing districts and some of the negative impact it can have on them. Does it have any impact on any other junior taxing districts if we set something aside for a TIF? Would that affect a hospital or school or any of the other taxing districts?
I understand the question. Not that I've seen so far, but again, I think that will be another one, Councilmember Benjamin, that I'll need to do a little bit more research on, and I want to get you the right answer. And so what I'll do is, for those two questions, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of research, and then by Friday, close of business, I will email the council and let you know what those answers are. Thank you.
Megan?
Hi, Sean. So I have a couple of questions. At the very beginning, you said that this is used for roads, and what else?
We have the ability to use it for roads, utilities, parks, things like that for public investment that would ultimately attract private investment to the area.
Okay. So something like a bypass, which is on everyone's mind around downtown, is a possibility.
As we've seen in the Wenatchee project does include bypass as well, so that would certainly be something that we could look into for utilization with TIF funds, absolutely.
Okay. My concern with that, with the example that you gave, and I sounds like this is pretty new, you said the amount anticipated for TIF over 25 years in that project was $4.4 million, but a huge chunk of that is grants. Does it put us in a better position to receive those grants if we say, hey, we have a TIF that we've structured here?
That's a good question, Councilman Guido. I don't know that it necessarily puts us in a better position. The only thing that I can really see where, I should say, it doesn't put us in a better position to receive the grant. In essence, if we were applying for a grant, writing in there that we have a TIF district we're applying this to wouldn't necessarily give us a leg up from the research that I've done. Really the benefit I think to seeing in that Wenatchee project is that they're able to kind of begin that process of their improvements without having the full amount of money. And so they're able to stretch that out over the 25 years. And I don't know, there may be another tool that we could utilize to do something like that. But you're right, it's a very unique project in that the majority of it is taken care of by those grants.
Okay.
Eileen?
Thank you.
So the money that's generated through the TIF process has to be used within the TIF district?
Yes, Councilmember McCall, it will have to be used within the TIF district and within the allotted amount of time. And we want to be very careful. It's one of the restrictions and set on TIF is that in the event TIF is paid off, say we pay that off early, the TIF will sunset at that moment. We don't have the opportunity to kind of stretch those funds and say, we'll add X, Y, and Z, and we're going to keep pouring money into this project. We would have to be very specific about how we're going to go about those projects and how we're going to meet our goals. And from there, if we hit that or if we pay those funds back, the TIF will sunset.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know on the Transportation Improvement Board for the state, we have a number of different presentations where they were really grateful for their TIF funding. And they were able to combine that with the Transportation Improvement Board funding, others, and were able to get projects done. And so heard a lot of good positives about that project. Any other questions? If not, Sean, thank you, and we'll be getting some more information back from you on that, so thank you. Item D on the agenda tonight, the public comment. This is for persons who would like to comment on any final action the City Council is going to take tonight. And that includes something has been given public comment already. In a hearing, we cannot take public comment on that. So if there's anybody who wants to make public comment on any final action that we're taking tonight. Seeing none, move along. We now come to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. Council's had a chance to study these over ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And there is a revised consent agenda, so item number 7 is not going to be heard tonight. So with that, Thad, please read the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item is a motion to dispense with the reading of the October 10, 2023 meeting minutes and approve them as submitted. Item 2, a motion to approve disbursements for payroll check number 74929, totaling $734.75. Item 3, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 111576 through 111595. Electronic transfers 129, 130, 1059, and 1065 through 1070. Payroll direct deposits numbered 88394 through 88746, totaling $1,488,935.40. Item 4 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 200333 through 200407, totaling $5,852,522.42. Item 5, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable check number 200408, replacing check numbered 200244, totaling $4,786.85. Item 6 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 200409 through 200501, totaling $1,033,596.31. Item 7 has been removed and postponed. Item 8 is a resolution number R-48-23, a resolution authorizing submission of an application for City of Pullman renewal of coverage under the NPDES Eastern Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater General Permit.
Is there any item the council would like for discussion? None. The consent agenda consists of items 1 through 6.
I did combine, just so everyone knows, I did combine both Metro and the city kind of into one presentation. There's a lot of similarities between them, but there will be 2 separate hearings. So this is just a bit of the general fund revenue. You can see last couple of years of actuals from 21, 22, 23 budgeted, where we think we're going to end 23, which is still a little bit of a moving target, and then the preliminary budget that was approved for 2024. So overall, in the general fund, you're seeing good revenues so far. This is really driven primarily by higher than anticipated sales tax, utility tax, and interest revenue. So we're looking ahead of where we budgeted, which is great. I believe as the council probably remembers, both the 2023 and 2024 budgets on the general fund side were actually approved excess expenses over revenues. So to see strong revenues is really good because that'll help kind of close that gap there. The tax levy, you can see the general property tax, the EMS levy, those are pretty standard. There's very little variation there. Sales tax, utility tax is higher. And then emissions tax is a little bit less than anticipated is where it's looking right now. Liquor marijuana tax is pretty close. And one thing that probably is mentioning is building permits. And the reason I bring that up, not necessarily because it's a big dollar amount, and it's not exactly prequel to what actually gets built, but obviously if you have lower permits, there's potential for less building. And that weighs in a couple things is we do collect sales tax on construction, so that has the potential to affect future construction. Then of course it also impacts property tax as new construction increases that property tax threshold. So just something to kind of keep in mind on the building permits there. Other fund revenues outside of the general fund, and these aren't really impacted too much by taxes, but is worth sharing. Civic improvement continues to be very strong, so this is lodging taxes. Those funds are kind of dedicated to tourism or attracting visitors, so not part of the general fund, but those have been very strong over the course of the last year. Public works, so this includes our streets, our utilities, transit. Those revenues are solid, a little bit less than we thought it'd be, but not of concern. And the other things are fire pension, the bond, which is the 2018 bond, which is set with a cap, and then cemetery expansion, which is a small part of the budget. So this is kind of gives you an idea on the general fund where the revenue comes from. You can see 72% of it's from taxes. That's not exclusively property taxes. There is some other taxes in there from the utilities and the admissions tax. But again, taxes do cover the majority of it. And then after that, it's charges for goods and services. So this is things like charges for recreation activities, charges for ambulance calls, those types of things. And then we do have a couple other small pieces from government, fines and forfeits, licenses. So, but again, you can see the tax revenue is what really drives it. So when we look at 2024, and I apologize on the presentation, I just caught it late this afternoon, the presentation that was in the council packet, I did have the 2023 general fund expense on there and not the 2024, so it has been corrected on here. But again, as you can see on the preliminary budget, there was almost a $3 million gap between revenue and expense. So it's good to see some of our revenues being positive because that helps close those gaps. So here's a look at sales tax collections, and sales tax has been one of our positive things really over last year. It kind of started in late 2022, and you can see that on the red line there, October, November, December being strong. And so far that's carried through 2023, so we're always about 2 months behind in our collections, so that's why it's through July and not through September, is by the time we get our money, it's about a couple months after. So those are the actual months that the sales tax revenue was collected. And then as we see by the city about 2 months later. So this is a strong trend. Hopefully it'll continue through end of 2023 and into 2024. So specifically for Metro Parks revenue, really the Metro Parks district, pretty much all of the revenue comes from the tax levy, the property tax levy. So you see there, we last year it was about 620,000. This year it's about 642,000. We show a slight projection increase for next year. We do receive some donations into Metro, and so that's why you'll see on the actuals is a little bit higher. Those are pretty limited. We don't necessarily budget for those because when those donations come in, they're obviously in most cases set aside for something specific, so it's not like that goes into cover general expenses. We are seeing a little bit of a spike now and probably will next year as they've kicked off fundraising for Veterans Park. And so we'll probably see some increased donations coming there, but again, that'll obviously be set aside specifically for that project. This is just kind of a little bit of history on the city of Pullman assessed value, kind of just a pretty consistent upward trend. You see a tiny little bit of a spike in 2020, but pretty consistent there in total assessed value. So this is kind of shows where property taxes go for a resident of the city of Pullman. So the city itself gets about 30% of property taxes, so it's about $4.48 per thousand of assessed value. The biggest recipient of Pullman tax dollars from property taxes is the school district, followed by the city, followed by the state of Washington. And then you see some smaller slices there for Whitman County, the hospital district, and the Port of Whitman. Specifically, our $4.48, $3.28 is our regular bond. So that covers really primarily used to cover our general fund expenditures. You do see the EMS levy, and those are really the two that we'll focus on the city side. The parks, which is the Metro Parks there, and then there's the 2018 bond, and I think it's noted the 2018 bond, that's fixed, so that doesn't increase. It's at that same dollar amount, so typically, and it's not guaranteed, that 46 cents, I guess it is right now, that'll actually probably most likely go down per thousand, which is a little bit different than the other ones. So here's some property tax data. Again, the 28 bonds not on here, but you see the city, the EMS, and the Metro Parks District. You see what our 2023 levy rates were there. What a proposed 1% increase, and for those of you who don't know, there is a limit of 1% increase in property tax on the base, as long as that's less than inflation, which it is this year. So 1% is the highest you could increase. A 1% increase would generate about $90,000 in extra revenue. Estimated new construction, and it is estimated at this point, is estimated to be about $44.5 million in new construction. That would generate about another $175,000 to $180,000. So total increase is in what we would receive under this scenario. For property tax revenue, it'd be a little bit less than a 3% increase. So that is less than inflation, but does kind of help with covering expenses. So the next steps from here, the public hearing, which you hold tonight, so there'd be a public hearing for the city revenue sources. So that would be the general property tax as well as the EMS revenues, and then the Metro District, which again, I kind of included in the one presentation, but is a separate action item. Then based off of where things sit after tonight, we would bring back, regardless of preference, we'd bring back levy actions for the regular levy, the EMS levy, and the Metro Parks levy at the next meeting. Those due, as you may remember from the previous meeting, if you remember that timeline, we have to get those turned in to the county. The latest we can get them turned in is November 30th. They're asking if possible to get them by the 15th. Next meeting is the 14th, so we'll probably be able to meet that. But requirement by state statute is that it has to be turned into them by the 30th to get into next year's tax rolls. That's what I have. If there's
Any questions of Jeff on this? Okay, at this time, we open the public hearing for anyone who would like to make a comment about the revenue sources that you just heard from the finance director. If you have any comments on that, we limit it to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to make any public comments on the revenue sources? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. At this point, we'll adjourn the meeting of the City Council. We'll convene the meeting of the Metropolitan Park District. Roll has already been taken. The first item is a motion to dispense with reading of the minutes of the Metropolitan Park District special meeting of June 27th and approve them as submitted. I hear a motion on this.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify it by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next comes the public hearing on the Metropolitan revenue sources. And Jeff, is there any comment you would like to make on this? You've already presented it, but if there's any comment?
No. If anyone has any specific questions about that, I answer.
Okay. This time, is anyone who'd like to make any public comment on the revenue sources for the Metropolitan Park District in this public hearing? Seeing none, I will now close the meeting of the Metropolitan Park District. We will close the meeting of the Metropolitan Park District after the hearing. We'll now reconvene the meeting of the City Council. And the next item is a regular agenda item. It's a resolution here with Mike Urban dealing with the Code of Conduct for elected officials, boards, committees, commissions, staff, volunteers, and the community. So, Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Before you tonight is Resolution R-49-23, resolution creating a Code of Conduct. This item came as a result of the 2022-2023 City Council goals and priorities. City Council met on September 12th and October 10th to discuss this item. Staff had collected those edits and assembled the attached documents you have tonight in front of you for your consideration. And with that, staff recommends the city adopt the resolution as presented, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have on this item.
Any questions? Nathan.
So, Mike, this is good. I did have a question. The ask section, were we going to keep the, I know we want to keep the, do I need to know this to make a decision now, or do I just want to know the answer? I wasn't sure if we were going to keep, or do I just want to know the answer?
I went back and we looked at the video, and I actually had the clerk, I did my edits based on that, and I had the clerk review that, and this is what we got out of the instructions, but we can certainly make some changes here.
No, I don't think, I think it's, it's a great document. I just wanted to make sure that when we do look at this, that I don't think it matters if we just want to know the answer or if we need it to make a decision. Shouldn't be a negative to have either, and I don't, perhaps I'm just reading into it too much. So I think it's a good doc. I just wanted to ask. So I wanted to ask for an answer. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
No other questions? I hear a motion on this resolution.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Thad, do you want to read the resolution?
Sure, thank you. Resolution number R-49-23, a resolution creating a code of conduct for elected officials, boards, committees, commissions, staff, volunteers, and the community for treating one another and to work together for the common good of the community and all other matters related thereto.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 2, legislative priorities. Again, Mike Urban, our city administrator.
Thank you. So before you tonight for your consideration of the 24 legislative priorities, ahead of the November 9th meeting with the 9th District Legislative Delegation, as well as the 2024 legislative session that's scheduled to start on January 8th in Olympia. This agenda item is a culmination of previous discussions on August 22nd, September 12th, and October 10th of this year. And as such, this document has been compiled with those pieces of input, and staff recommends the City Council adopt the 2024 legislative priorities as presented. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, do I hear a motion on the priorities to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3 tonight is a motion to authorize the city administrator to proceed with and the position of a part-time communications intern as requested.
Thank you. So the city communications coordinator will be taking family medical leave at the end of 2023 and through the first part of 2024. And in order to maintain the basic level of outward communications established through the City Council goal-setting process, staff recommends hiring a part-time communication intern for the remainder of the 2023-2024 WSU school year. Existing staff can absorb some of the responsibilities of the communications coordinator, but not at the full capacity. The expected costs for this one-time expenditure is included in your agenda packet, and as you will see those below. If council approves moving forward with this recommendation, staff would return with the budget amendment as part of the end of the year routine processes. And with that, staff recommends council adopt or make a motion and approve authorizing the city administrator to proceed with the hiring process to hire the best candidate for this position. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Questions or comments? And I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moving second. For motion to authorize the city administrator to proceed with adding a position of part-time communications intern as requested. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, council.
With that, we go to new business. Is there any new business to come before the council tonight? Seeing none, I'm going to, yes, go ahead. Francis.
I had one, and this is something that I'm interested in seeing if the council would like to add an item to a future agenda item, not for tonight, but what it is the downtown flood walls that we have in downtown Pullman, the wooden barriers that go up in order to protect. Some of those wooden barriers are being replaced with new sheets of plywood, and this would be an opportune time to actually get some type of artwork onto those. Now, the normal process for artwork is going through the Arts Commission. Since we've not had enough applications to fill it, what I'm proposing, what I'd like to propose for a future, for next council meeting, is a discussion about the possibility of temporary artwork on these boards that would allow us to be able to start the conversation with the community about, can you imagine what it would look like if those flood boards were painted in some type of mural fashion or something like this. So in the context, what I'd like to do is propose that at the next council meeting, we would entertain a one-time set aside the current process where art proposals come up through the Arts Commission to the council, to where the council would approve. And then what I would propose as our, at least a starting point for our discussion, is the boards are 4x8 sheets of plywood. What we could do is for participating K-12 schools that would be interested in doing this, one sheet out to each of those participating schools for them to paint the artwork, and then we'd get them clear coated in time for them to get installed. Now, going through the public art process of what is art and how do we do it in a way that wouldn't, that since we've not actually seen pictures of what the art would be, which normally what comes to the council, I was thinking we could at least start the conversation where it's something like the images on the board that the children would do would be only items common to the area that are flora, fauna, water features, geological features. There'd be no words, no man-made structures, and no people, just as a way to kind of simplify it in the process. And so I'm now, obviously, this is something that I'm just bringing now. I'm not expecting anybody has a lot of thoughts on this, and so that's why I was proposing this to be at a future council meeting if there's interest on council to try to get something done prior to the flood boards getting actually put up.
Any comments from the council? Yeah.
What's the time frame?
Well, the flood boards, they go up normally mid-December. So it'd be something that if we did this, if this sounds like something that there's an interest in, I would at least contact the schools to figure out how many schools could have potential interest in doing this, so we'd have that feeling at the meeting that we do it. But it would be something that they would get the boards mid-November. They would roughly have 2 to 3 weeks in order to do the paint. Then we would do the clear coat, and then it would pass to our art team that would put them up. And I know this is not the normal way it's done, and so that's why I really want to kind of hear from the council. There's pluses and minuses, but at the same time, it gets us being able to have that conversation with the community of imagine what a full art, mural would look like, and this would be really billed as a temporary thing, and then allow the art process for the permanent feature to go through the Arts Commission to come back to us.
Okay, Nathan.
Francis, I think that's a good idea. I also just have a question. You're talking about flora, fauna, geologic. We're going to avoid religious iconography, things like that, correct? Anything that would be...
Yeah, and that's the thing and that's the reason we need to think about what is included on the list, and that's the reason why I was thinking no buildings, no words, no man-made structures.
Religion, I think that would
But
be
to
a
include
really
that
big...
in too.
Yeah.
Okay, Eileen.
One of the ideas that was floated similar to this, and this has been a long time ago, but one of the things maybe to add to that list of acceptable imagery would be respectful interpretations of the U.S. flag. That was floated at one of the very first downtown association meetings a long time ago. Just a thought.
To include that or not to include
To include that as part of the list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, respectful interpretations of the U.S. flag and respectful being determined by the council or other appropriate body.
There is a downtown arts group that's going. We might be able to consult with them and work with them too.
Yeah.
Pat.
Well, I'm just recalling a number of years ago where we put something into the schools to do the banners. that were the Celebrate Art banners, which, we already have a precedent in involving the schools in this, and so this would certainly be right in line with what we've done before, and to engage the schools is a good thing.
And we've done it, and others have done it where they've also painted the plow for the snowplow. Yeah,
Cool.
so that's a very, especially when you see it coming in your direction, it really stands out. So, yeah.
I guess if I can interject that, with these conversations going on, if our next council meeting, and Mike, would I be correct to say the November 14th council meeting,
Correct.
that this would come back? So that would probably give us time to actually have the schools have examples of artwork that they bring to us for that November 14th meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
And, okay.
I like it.
So you're getting a lot of head nods. Okay. Any other new business before the council tonight? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the meeting of the city council and go into executive session pursuant to discuss with legal counsel representing the city matters relating to agency enforcement action, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency a potential litigation concerning litigation an agency responsibly believes may be commenced by or against the agency, the governing body, or members acting in an official capacity. Since we have the scouts here doing communications merit badge, that's all written by an attorney. I just want you to know that. So council does not anticipate taking any action following executive session. The executive session should last 5 minutes, and if it lasts any longer than that, we'll come out and make an announcement. With that, we're going to adjourn. It's now 7:58. We will try to get together at 8 o'clock, which gives you about a minute and a half or something after that, maybe 8:02. So. Turn on? Yes. Okay. You want to do the motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Move to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay.